Going? Unaccustomed as I am to trying to be doing multiple tasking here, but since Jackie suggested I get wired here, so we'll see how this goes. Thank you, Denise. Dave. The wonderful executive director of the County Seniors Center for Senior Citizens. Thank you very much, Denise. Appreciate it. Well, good morning and welcome to you all. I hope you've had a chance to grab some coffee here. Pat Ding, when he came in, he was already on his, giving me heck for not having donuts here. So I don't know. Maybe Galen Ash is going to bring the donuts. Panera is there, but in any event, it's. I really appreciate all of you taking time from your tremendously busy schedules to be with us this morning. We were waiting a little bit because we know that some of you heard on Channel 13 they were talking about this event, and we're going to be reporting it at 5 o'clock. So I suspect, as I often find is the case, but I at least expect that someone will be putting a microphone in front of me. But that goes with the territory. Right, Ann McVeigh, you know, every time you turn around, you have to be prepared. I also appreciate all of you just really taking time, and also I appreciate the fact that we have some guests with us this morning. Not guests because they're members of the community, but who have been very active in terms of urging the adoption of an amendment to our city charter. They have been regular attenders at various meetings of the City Council. So I will open with a brief statement, and copies are available here, should you wish to have one. And then respond to any questions from the media. And then after the media, if anyone else would like to ask a question, I'd be more than happy to try to respond. And also we have here Brian O'Connell, of course Mike Marsh, the city attorney, and John Fawcett, our municipal administrator, and others that can help answer and maybe even are better prepared to answer some questions than I am. Today, many of us find ourselves, find ourselves in an uncomfortable and somewhat difficult and perplexing position. We are citizens and representatives of a city that has one of the more admirable and commendable records in the state for investing taxpayer dollars in adopting policies and in providing services to ensure good water, good wastewater treatment facilities, and low-cost electrical rates. Further, as a city, Bowling Green was among the first cities in the state of Ohio to promote wind power and in providing electrical recharging stations. In fact, at one point we had more than the entire city of Cincinnati, or three. We are a city that has long been promoting environmentally sound practices and policies and in becoming less dependent on fossil fuels. By 2015, Bowling Green, as a result of its investments in renewable energy sources, will be 37% renewable with an added 3% gain through energy efficiencies. It is the city's continuing goal through its Department of Public Utilities and its public governing board to continue on a path of lessening dependency on fossil fuels. Despite a public utilities track record that few cities in Ohio can match. In fact, I'm hard-pressed to identify cities anywhere in this region that are doing better, with the exception of Oberlin, Ohio, a community that I happen to know somewhat. We are a city that could be irreparably harmed if the will of a few, largely outside interests, and here I'm referring outside interests in terms of the proposed language in the charter that has come and is being used throughout different parts of Ohio and other parts of the perhaps West Virginia and Western Pennsylvania. I'm not sure the source I think it probably came from a Columbus law firm. The name Bowling Green was dropped into this generic document. But if the city could be irreparably harmed, if this particular petitioning group are successful in amending and altering the basic character and purpose of the city's time-proven city charter. Therefore, today we are announcing the formation of a nonpartisan coalition of community leaders and interests to urge the voters of Bowling Green to vote no to amend the city charter. We are urging a no vote on the proposed amendment to the city charter because, and I have several reasons here. First, and most importantly, the proposal has nothing to do with the city charter. It has nothing to do with the structure and processes of city government. The BG City Charter was adopted by the voters in 1972 and was amended after lengthy study by nonpartisan committees, combined with public hearings, numerous public hearings, and in fact the process lasted for much of a year, in 1991 and in 2001. And then, after adoption by City Council, approved by City Council, then it was ratified by the electorate in a regular election. It was purposely designed to be a non-issue document with the responsibility for legislation vested with a City Council. That is a prescribed role in the charter for City Council to adopt legislation. As mayor and as a political scientist, I am appalled that the petitioners for amending the charter do not understand the basic workings of our city government or its history. The City Council, point number 2, the City Council has already addressed the issue of fracking by a 7-0 vote on September 16th, 2013. Council is to be commended for listening to citizens and others, including members of the petitioning group who are here today with us, that urge the ban on any form of fracking within the city limits of Bowling Green. The ordinance will be enforced under the city's criminal code, a point that is not understood, and will result in a $1,000 a day fine for each day of any kind of violation of that particular ordinance. Point 3, further, we are urging citizens to vote no on the proposed amendment to the city's time-proven and effective charter because the language used in the 2.5-page non-Bowling Green crafted document. This did not start, again, this document was not created in Bowling Green. The name Bowling Green was dropped into the document. The language in the document is vague and misleading. The language used is couched and even disguised in lofty and well-intentioned terms, and I emphasize well-intentioned. I don't question the sincerity of the petitioners whatsoever. Well-intentioned. Well, the promoters of the amendment want the voters to believe that the language says one thing. In fact, they're now using the term aspirational, but in no way does the language in the proposed amendment to the charter reflect any aspirational goals or specific goals like in 2030 Bowling Green has become so to move along the line, or by 2050 to be non-dependent upon fossil fuels. In any event, while the promoters of the amendment want the voters to believe that the language says one thing, in reality the language employed could cause, again I emphasize, irreparable harm to the city, its users of public utilities, and therefore its businesses and industries. Many are represented here this morning. Schools, and the largest user of electricity in the city, BGSU. Point 4, also of greatest risk from the seemingly unintended consequences of the proposed amendment to the charter is the city's growing industrial base. In following a practice initiated by my predecessor, John Quinn, I have been meeting for the last 2 years, each year, as a matter of fact, the last 2 years, for last year and this year, with the owners, CEOs, and plant managers of almost 40 industrial operations in Bowling Green, from an economic development perspective, one of the many attractive features for locating an industrial operation in Bowling Green is its low cost, I emphasize low cost, electrical rate, and the services provided by the city. We now have regained some much needed bounce in the post-recession economy in Bowling Green, and now is not the time for a heavy dose of economic uncertainty provoked by likely and major increases in the cost of electricity. I'm emphasizing likely and possible potential, because the language is very unclear in this regard in the cost of electricity. The Economic Development Director, Sue Clark, who is here, of course, has at least 2 major employers looking at Bowling Green at the moment, including one from Korea. In fact, I just recently met with that delegation. And uncertainty, I emphasize uncertainty, is not an inducement to locate here. Industries simply do not like it. I see Jenny here in front of me. You know, even in your business, you don't like uncertainty. You want to know, be able to predict and look into the future. And have some assurance. Therefore, given the fact that Bowling Green has a good track record in protecting the environment, and again, I can't emphasize enough, because many in this room helped to make this possible. You served in council, you served in other groups and commissions and study groups for the city. You've made this possible. Our history is very admirable and commendable in terms of protecting the environment. We are not a violator city by EPA standards, and as we all know, the Ohio EPA regional office is located right here in Bowling Green. In fact, one of the really interesting points that so many of the industries emphasize when we go out and meet with them is their working relationship. When in doubt about using particular materials or substances and so forth, they check. It's a close working relationship with the EPA to make sure that they are not violating any of the EPA standards. All of this helps to benefit the city on its road toward increased degrees of sustainability, concurrently with its ability to provide efficient and effective public services. And that is why, and some of those reasons are why we are calling upon the citizens of Bowling Green to vote no on the proposed amendment to the city charter. To help carry the message forward and to help ensure greater degrees of public understanding about Bowling Green utilities and how our city functions as a city under the city charter. That's been working for us since 1972. I am joined today by a coalition of citizens and community interests who are determined to preserve the city charter and to help ensure our standing as a city that is admired by other cities. In fact, we also often hear about Toledo or other places. They can't even begin to match what we are doing here as in terms of our public utilities in the city of Bowling Green. I am joined in this effort to protect the integrity of our city charter and to promote understanding and awareness of the potential harm, again I emphasize potential harm, to our city by Mayor Emeritus John Quinn, who served the city so ably from 2001 to 2011, and by other stakeholders in the city's future. Representatives from the Bowling Green Chamber, the Bowling Green Community Development Foundation, the Board of Public Utilities, Downtown Bowling Green, and others including former members of council and the charter review committees of the past in 1991 and 2001. The city schools, represented here by Dr. McVeigh, and other citizen interests. Again, copies of this statement are available for your review along with my answers to questions posed by the Bowling Green League of Fluid Voters. There's a one-page document there that has 3 very pertinent questions, and I tried my best to respond to those questions. We also have copies of the ordinance adopted by City Council on September 16th to ban fracking or any form of fracking in the city of Bowling Green. It's that issue, the fracking issue, to ban fracking, that we heard time and time and time again City council listened. They took action, 7-0 vote to ban fracking in the city of Bowling Green. I can't begin to tell you how many citizens have come up to me and said, Dick, I didn't realize what I was signing. Because the sincerity of the petitioners. And there's no doubt about their sincerity. They're good people. They mean well. But they were asking people, do you favor or do you want to ban fracking in Bowling Green? No, let me sign here without reading the 2.5-page document. That's my problem, not reading, that some people like to not read the document. I had 3 people even approach me, and again, they were very nice. I can't fault them in any way. They were in our neighborhood, one gentleman from Columbus, Ohio. And so I asked him a few simple questions about our city charter. He couldn't answer them. He knew, he just wanted, you've got to sign this because you're opposed to fracking in Bowling Green. I said, I am very passionately opposed to fracking in Bowling Green, but I cannot sign that document because of the language. And I think you ought to take another look at it. In any event, that's my statement, and I can't emphasize enough how much I appreciate you all participating in this effort. I'd like to think it's not an adversarial effort, but rather an educational effort, trying to help people to understand why our concerns are so pointed, especially with regard to the city charter. The fact that never in its history since 1972 has the charter been amended without going through a study committee process, without public hearings. Without public hearings. And I know, Stu, you're right in front of me here, because you chaired the 2001 co-chaired with George Scott. And without action by council, and then going to the voters for reaffirmation. And in both instances, those changes to the charter, largely technical in nature, because the charter, as we all know, there's a simple, quick link to it on the city website, deals with the very basic nature and purpose of our form of government. It's the mayor, administrative form of government, and council having legislative responsibilities. And Roger Anderson, you taught this for your whole career. I only taught local and state government very early in my career at another university, but I well recognize and appreciate the value of the principle of home rule. I'm eager to preserve it. I've often said that if I ever have to go into a court of law, I wouldn't mind going in to try to fight at least for home rule. Yes, there are some concerns in the state of Ohio and other states throughout the country about some degree of erosion on home rule, the principles of home rule. But they're worth fighting for, they're worth preserving. They served the city well since 1972. So with that, I just want to